The Morgue camera. Santa Augusta Hospital has always been known for its dark past. Built in the early 20th century, she housed cold corridors and rooms that had already witnessed countless deaths. Among the places most avoided by the employees was the morgue, an underground space where the bodies were stored before removal to the IML. They said that at dawn, strange noises echoed from there, and those who passed by felt an invisible presence watching. Renato, a skeptical night watchman, didn't believe in any of this. For him, they were just stories invented by superstitious nurses. However, his opinion changed dramatically when he received an order from the administration, installing a security camera inside the morgue. The previous filming had presented inexplicable failures. Cameras turned off for no reason, and when they were checked, they showed only static. Some believed it was a technical problem, others that something more sinister was happening. Renato descended to the morgue at 2 a.m., armed with his flashlight and surveillance equipment. The air there was heavy, and the smell of formaldehyde still pervaded the place. He chose a strategic corner, installed the camera, and tested the transmission in real time. Everything seemed normal. Back in the monitoring room, Renato watched the live images. At first, no big deal. But at 3:33 a.m., he saw something that froze his blood. One of the body storage drawers slowly slid out. No one was there, no movement. Renato rubbed his eyes, believing to be a defect. However, on the screen, the drawer continued to open until revealed a body covered by a white sheet. He felt a chill through his spine. Taking courage, he took his communicating radio and called his colleague, Marcos, to accompany him to the place. Together, they went down again to the morgue. Upon arriving, everything seemed intact. The drawers were closed and no apparent abnormality. "Maybe I imagine things," Renato murmured, but when he checked the camera, he noticed something terrifying. The body of the recording was not there. The drawer number corresponded to one of the deceased from the previous day, a middle-aged man who had had a car accident. The morgue record showed that the body had been removed hours earlier, but then why did it appear in the chute? That night, Renato decided to continue watching the camera. A mistake, he thought. This could only be a mistake. But when the clock pointers scored 3:33 again, the camera showed the same body coming out of the drawer. This time, however, the sheet slowly slipped to the floor, revealing a pale face and open eyes that aimed directly at the camera lens. Renato felt a tightness in his chest. His hands trembled as he tried to understand what he was seeing. So something worse happened. The body moved. Slowly, he turned his head to the side and opened his mouth like screaming, but no sound came out. Then the screen was black. The monitoring system failed, and the morgue lights blinked until they went out for good. Panic dominated Renato. He tried to contact Marcos, but the radio was silent. With his heart rapidly, he descended the stairs back to the morgue to check the camera. The place was taken by the dark. Only his flashlight cut the darkness. He swallowed dry and approached the drawer that had opened in the recording. When he held the handle, he felt a shiver through his body. The drawer was empty. However, when he turned to leave as soon as possible, his flashlight blinked and by a fraction of a second lit something in the corner of the room. The body was standing without the sheet, staring at it. Renato shouted and ran without looking back. He resigned the next day and never returned to the hospital. In the following days, other watchmen reported strange activities. The monitoring system captured incomprehensible noises, whispers that seemed to come out of nowhere. Some said they heard Renato's name was called in the midst of the devices. Employees reported sightings of a tall and thin figure in the morgue corridors, which disappeared as soon as they tried to approach. Attempts to disable the morgue and transfer the bodies to another place failed. Something always prevented reforms. Engineers encountered inexplicable problems in the structure. Equipment failed for no apparent reason, and workers refused to enter the underground alone. The case attracted the attention of paranormal researchers who installed audio sensors and recorders. What they captured was even more disturbing. muffled screams, cracks, and a voice that repeated the phrase, "Come back to me," in a low and insistent tone. To this day, the unknown body drawer continues to open at 3:33 a.m., and no one has the courage to find out what is really behind this mystery. Recently, a new watchman agreed to work on the night shift. Unlike the others, he decided to stay awake and attentive, taking with him a small diary to write down any occurrence. During the first nights, nothing happened. But then, on the fifth night, he heard a metallic noise from the morgue. Tremendous. He went down the stairs and found a terrible scene. The morgue door was open and the air looked colder than usual. He pointed his flashlight to the drawers and saw that one was ajar. In fear but determined, he approached and realized that the interior was empty. That's when he heard a heavy breath behind him. Slowly he turned and found a man dressed in pale and eyes watching him. The watchman tried to run, but his legs crashed. The man opened his mouth, and a whisper came out of his lips. Why did it come back? The next morning, the staff found the diary lying on the morgue floor, covered with blood, dirted marks. The watchman disappeared without traces. The woman in the bathroom mirror. Our Lady of Grace's hospital has always been a place of intense work. Between emergency care and long shifts, employees got used to strange noises and lights flashing in the corridors. However, there was a place that even the most skeptical avoided, the female bathroom on the third floor. They said that if you looked into the mirror for a long time, you would see a woman standing there watching back. The problem was that she wouldn't be after you. Mariana, a new nurse in the night shift, laughed at these stories. For her, it was all rumors created to scare the newly hired. But his opinion changed a silent night when he had to use the bathroom. The atmosphere was deserted. The corridor illuminated only by a weak light that shake, giving an even darker air to the place. Upon entering, he felt an unexpected shiver. The mirrors were large, covering almost the entire wall above the sinks, reflecting the empty room and the boxes closed. The air looked colder inside. She washed her hands, trying to ignore the feeling that she wasn't alone. He looked in the mirror quickly, but nothing was unusual. He sighed and smiled on his own, finding himself silly for paying attention to superstitions. But when he lowered his head to dry his hands and looked again in the mirror, the blood sprinkled in his veins. Behind her, inside one of the closed pits, was a pale woman with black, wet-haired with a back-eyed eyes and an empty expression. Mariana turned her body quickly, but the boxing was still locked. She arrested her breath, feeling her heart accelerate. The image was still there in the mirror, stopping, watching it. A drip noise echoed through the bathroom. The tap she had closed was open again, dropping small drops of water. Her eyes returned in the mirror, and the woman was no longer inside the boxing. Now it was right behind her. Mariana shouted and ran out, stumbling and falling into the hallway. Her scream attracted other employees who helped her get up. She told, panting, what she had seen. Some exchanged serious looks, others just swung their heads as if they already waited for it. In the following days, Mariana avoided the third floor. But something about her felt the need to return to the bathroom, as if there was something unfinished. On the fourth night, he felt an irresistible call. He walked slowly through the desert corridor, feeling an unusual cold spread throughout the room. When he pushed the bathroom door, he found all the sinks working, pouring water into a frantic pace. The mirror, blurry, seemed to be pulsed like a living organism. Suddenly a word emerged on the surface. Stay. Mariana retreated, terrified, but an invisible force locked the door behind her. The mirror vibrated, and the wet-haired woman slowly emerged from inside the glass, as if a barrier broke between worlds. Her black eyes fixed on Mariana's, who, paralyzed, felt a cold hand touch her shoulder. The woman opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Just a muffled whisper filled the air. Mariana tried to scream, but her voice failed. He felt his own image in the mirror distorted himself, as if he were being pulled into him. His vision darkened. The next morning, a cleaning lady found the bathroom intact except for one detail. The mirror was completely cracked, and Mariana's reflection seemed stuck inside, her wide eyes fixed on something no one else could see. Since then, many reported hearing murmurs from the empty bathroom. Some people said they saw the silhouette of a woman reflected in the glass, even when they were alone. More recent reports speak of patients who, as they pass the third floor, feel a strange desire to look into the mirror, as if something called them. One night, a nurse heard a low cry from the banned bathroom. She hesitated, but decided to investigate. When opening the door, he found everything in perfect condition. But as he approached the mirror, he saw something move inside him. Mariana's distorted figure seemed to debate, her hands pressured against the glass, as if he tried to leave. The hospital tried to remove the mirror and replace it, but something always went wrong. Glasses refused to move him, claiming to feel a strange presence as they approached. Some of the new facilities broke alone, even before they were fixed to the wall. Employees report that from time to time a shadow appears reflected in the glass, even without anyone being in place. Others say hear low sobs from the disabled bathroom, and some report to feel a cold and suffocating presence as they approach the door. Fear has spread so much that new hires are alerted to never enter there after dusk. The mystery of the woman in the mirror has never been resolved, and to this day, those who dare face the reflection too long can end up seeing something that should never be seen. The Midnight Surgeon. San Bartolomeu Hospital has always had an impeccable reputation during the day. Renowned doctors, modern equipment, well-treated patients. But at night, everything changed. The corridors were too silent, the shadows stretched out the walls, and something seemed to stare beyond the reach of the security cameras. The oldest employees whispered on the Midnight Surgeon, a legend that for newbies was just a bad joke. But veterans never laughed when telling the story. They said that punctually at midnight, one of the old surgical rooms, long deactivated, was illuminated alone. Instruments disappeared, scalpel blades were found out of place, and sometimes fresh blood spots appeared on the stretchers. No patient had been operated there for years, but somehow someone continued to have surgeries. Raul was a young resident, skeptical and ambitious. He had never believed in ghost stories and laughed from his colleagues who feared walking alone at the hospital corridors. One day, he was cast for the night duty. It would be a long dawn, full of silence and cold coffee. Near midnight, while reviewing medical records in the ward, he heard a distant noise, something metallic like a surgical tray falling to the floor. He looked around, but the few nurses who were still in the hospital were busy in other wings. Intrigued, followed the sound. The noise took him to Wing B, where the old surgical rooms were located. He knew no one should be there. The hospital had banned that area years ago after a serious incident involving a patient who never woke up from anesthesia. However, one of the doors was ajar and a weak light blinked inside. With a fast heart, Raul pushed the door. What he saw left him speechless. In the center of the room, an operating table was covered with a bloody sheet. Around, scalpel, tweezers and scissors were carefully organized. The room, which should be abandoned, smelled of ether and disinfectant, as if used recently. Suddenly, a noise. Slow steps echoed behind him. Raul turned quickly and saw a tall figure dressed in a white-stained white coat. The surgical mask hid his face, but his eyes were completely black, without pupils, without emotion. "Doctor!" The cavernous voice echoed in the room. Raul felt his legs crashed. The figure approached, extending a glove hand. Surgery time. The next morning, nurses found Raul passed out on the floor of Wing B. He was taken to the ICU, still wearing his clothes on duty, but with something strange. His hands were covered in blood. The problem: the blood was not his. Since then, Raul has never been the same. He asked for removal and refused to talk about what he saw that night. But before leaving the hospital, he left a scribbled warning on a piece of paper. "If you hear scalpels falling after midnight, don't enter Wing B." Even after Raul's removal, strange events continued. Security cameras captured shadows moving through the corridors of Wing B, locked doors unlocked alone, and sometimes the records of deceased patients mysteriously appeared on the reception table. A nurse reported having seen the figure of a surgeon crossing the corridor and entering the interdicted operating room. When he went to check, he found the empty room, but with a bloody scalpel on the table. The stories spread, and more employees began to avoid midnight shift. Some even resigned, unable to deal with the growing sense of terror that took over the hospital. One night, a new security man decided to test the legend. Armed with a flashlight and a communicating radio, he went to Wing B just before midnight. He walked through the dark corridors, feeling an inexplicable cold to take over the environment. When she arrived at the door of the operating room, she found her ajar, as if someone waited him. He swallowed and entered. The room light flashed, and the stretcher in the center seemed to be busy by something under a white sheet. His heart hammered his chest as he approached and pulled the fabric. The sheet fell to the floor. The stretcher was empty. It was then that he felt a cold breath on his neck. Turning slowly, he found himself face to face with the midnight surgeon. "Security radio Chew, and your voice has never been heard. Since that night, paranormal activities have intensified. Some nurses began to report that when passing through the corridor of Wing B, they heard whispers of unknown voices calling for help. Surgical instruments continued to disappear, only to be found in unexpected places. Once, a patient hospitalized in the room near Wing B pressed the emergency button at dawn. When the team arrived, he was panicked, shaking, and pointed to the mirror in the corner of the room. He said he saw a man of bloody lab coat watching him by the reflection. The hospital administrators tried to seal the operating room, but strangely, all attempts failed. Padlocks broke without explanation, doors opened again, and who dared to get sworn to feel the presence of something invisible accompanying them? Now no one else mentions Midnight Surgeon aloud. But everyone knows that if a scalpel falls to the floor after midnight, it is better not to look back.